you for joining us today on Earthfile. Welcome to the program. I'm Ayola Kasim. According to the latest flagship report, The State of the Global Climate 2023, launched in March by the World Meteorological Organization, 2023 saw unprecedented climate extremes globally and breaking numerous records. Looking ahead to 2024, there are concerns that conditions could exacerbate further, especially regarding rising ocean temperatures and diminishing sea ice levels. According to WMO, average temperatures have surged to their highest point in the 174 years of recorded history, surpassing pre-industrial levels by 1.45 degrees Celsius with a significant margin. And this is experienced across the world. Here in Nigeria, the Nigerian Meteorological Organization is warning of a heat stress and urging everyone to avoid outdoors if you can between noon and 4 p.m. We'll look at what is causing this warming and more today on Earthfile. Do stay with us.
The rain that could have been a relief after sweltering months brought destruction for many.
It was cloudy, so I called the children to enter the house. Then the wind affected our house and it collapsed on me. I couldn't move. I felt like I was dead. I was taken to the hospital.
And a troubling new report by the Nigerian Meteorological Agency warns that the situation may not get better soon. It says the coming rains may bring more thunderstorms, but more importantly, many people across the country should expect many more hot days.
The heat wave we are experiencing now, first thing we should know that it's not peculiar to Nigeria. Secondly, the heat wave we are experiencing now, this is the season of heat in Nigeria. Thirdly, the heat wave we are experiencing now is to the extreme. That is where the alarm is. We are experiencing extreme heat. So you say, when should we expect the heat to go down? The season will end, depending on what part of the country you are, between April and May. Because when the rain sets in properly, the heat definitely will relieve. We will relieve of the heat. So depending on what part, the southern part of the country will start getting their relief from April because the rain will have set in there. And the northern part of the country will have to endure till May when their own rain will set in properly. But of the important note is the cause of extreme heat, not ordinary heat. Heat will come in the season, but the problem now is the extreme heat. What is the cause? The cause is simple, and it is called global warming.
In its latest advisories, NIMET says to cope with the heat, drink lots of water, stay under shade or cool place between noon to 4 p.m. and avoid strenuous activities during this time. Stay safe as violent storms may accompany thunderstorms, and airline operators are advised to get weather forecasts for effective planning of their operations. In all, outdoor activities should be limited during the daytime.
Usually when there is heat, when there is heat, usually the system tries to acclimatize or adapt to it. And whenever the system can no longer cope, there happens to be issue that has to do with loss of body fluids and electrolytes, and that is what is happening. And that can degenerate into some other heat-related disorder or illnesses, such as heat rashes. You can have heat cramp, you can have heat syncope, heat exhaustion, and the severe form of heat, which is heat stroke. Usually in this kind of period, depending on individual, I will advise that people should take a lot of fluid because heat is associated with lots of fluid and electrolytes. And also for those people that are working outside, they need to ensure that they spend less number of time under the outside where the temperature is high. There should be a midway between working for a short while in, outside and trying to cool down at interval. That will help out. And also, the kind of clothing is also very important. Wearing loose clothes, clothing that are ventilated, permeable, that cannot actually generate it will also contribute to that. And also ensuring that we stay in cold environment where there is availability of air condition or fan, as the case may be. But it's very important people take a lot of fluid because it's actually associated with lots of fluid and electrolyte, which is very important. So as to prevent some of those heat-related conditions that may arise. It can be occupational related, especially if somebody is actually exposed to that. So there is possibility of that, especially for those that are working in factories where the temperature is very, very high. There is that possibility of that. Then in absence of that, I don't think the general thing we may witness at the moment is that individuals may have heat cramps, which is painful contraction of the body muscles, usually around the foot and at the abdominal area. And also for those people that carry out physical exercise, you need to be very watchful in this period of time because exercise in this period can lead to individuals to actually develop heat syndrome, that is sudden collapse or having dizziness and so on, as a result of strenuous exercise during this high temperature situation we have in the country. And also, the kind of clothing is also very important. Wearing loose clothes, clothing that are ventilated, permeable, that cannot actually generate it will also contribute to that.
In February, NIMET had predicted a temperature range of 31 degrees Celsius to 14 degrees Celsius for all the states across the country for April. Warmer than normal daytime temperatures are expected across the country, except for parts of Jigawa, Bauchi and Borno states, where normal daytime temperatures are expected. Also, below normal temperature is expected over Yobe state.
The season ends between April and May. So if you are in the southern part of the country, you start experiencing some relief from April. If you are in the northern part of the country, heat wave will extend till May. However, intermittently, we will have some rain here and there and get some relief for 1 or 2 days. That's just like we're experiencing in Abuja now. We had rain on Thursday, and there's a little relief. But the rains have not set in. The heat is still around, and the temperatures are still going to be high. For thunderstorm, the advisories are that even at the stage of planning your house, you should have put it in mind. Thunderstorm is common in this our area, especially at the onset of rain and towards the end of the rain. So we'll see a lot of thunderstorms now that the rains are coming in, and a lot of thunderstorms when the rains are going. Like I said, the advisory should be, even at the design of your house, before you build it, you need provision for lightning arrestor in your house. But your house is not struck by lightning and thunder and destroy appliances, and it may even result in killing some people. When there is rainfall, people should not go out stand by the wall or by their metal gates, because metal gates are conductors. Lightning and thunderstorms are electric currents. So if you stand by metal gates or anything metal, you stand the risk of being struck by thunderstorm.
Currently, we are facing a kind of a tug war between the heat period and the transition to rainy season. So what I will advise people as well is that we need to be watching, especially you know what every day can generate can lead to some heavy waves and so on. So the only thing is to ensure that if our home is not, our zinc is not properly pitched, we should make sure that we put some of those things in order so as to prevent domestic accidents. Also, our drainages must be properly put in order, ensure that they are flowing well so as to guide against flooding, which are common things that may happen. And at the end of it, also, we should also ensure that whenever the rain has started, we should find a place to, hide, keep our vessel so as not to be exposed to the danger that may arise from the wind and other things that are associated with any onset of rainy season.
And for the farmers, they are advised to adopt water conservation techniques like mulching, water harvesting, and strategic fertilizer application to prevent nutrient leaching. For regions predicted to experience moderate to severe dry spells, NIMET advises utilizing drought-tolerant crop varieties. Farmers in areas expecting a shorter growing season are encouraged to plant early and early maturing varieties, while delaying planting is advised in regions expecting an early dry spell.
The last 9 years, since 2015 to 2023, are the warmest year on record. The decade 2014 to 2023 is the warmest decade on record. This demonstrates the acceleration and the continuing of the warming.
Based on data from multiple agencies, the World Meteorological Organization's State of the Global Climate 2023 report confirmed that 2023 was the warmest year on record, with the global average near-surface temperature at 1.45 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial baseline. It crowned the warmest 10-year period on record.
Year 2023 set new records for every single climate indicator. This annual report shows that the climate crisis is the defining challenge that humanity faces. It is closely intertwined with inequality crisis, as witnessed by growing food insecurity, population displacement, and biodiversity loss. Glaciers loss was the largest on record last year. These are the water towers of the world. They are our fresh water reservoirs. Sea ice depletion in the Antarctica was one of the major climate facts recorded in 2023.
The report, for example, cites figures that the number of people who are acutely food insecure worldwide has more than doubled from 149 million before the COVID-19 pandemic to 333 million in 2023 in 78 countries monitored by the World Food Programme. The World Meteorological Organization report not only raises alarm, but also offers reasons for optimism. In 2023, renewable capacity additions soared by almost 50%, totaling 510 gigawatts, the highest observed rate in 2 decades.
As Secretary General of the World Meteorological Organization, I am now sounding the red alert about the state of the climate. There is, however, a glimmer of hope. Renewable energy generation is surging. In 2023, clean energy capacity additions increased by almost 50% over 2022.
The surge in renewable energy generation, primarily fueled by solar radiation, wind, and the water cycle, has positioned it as a leading force in climate action for achieving decarbonization goals. Effective multi-hazard early warning systems are crucial for mitigating the impact of disasters. The Early Warnings for All initiative aims to ensure universal protection through early warning systems by 2027.
Climate is a driver of conflicts and is a driver for migrations, and these migrations sometimes are completely out of our control, and we cannot help that people that is moving because they are desperate, because they cannot provide food to their families. So we have to help them adapt, and the only way that the WMO can assist very effectively in this way is through the early warnings on the one hand, and providing better climate services to really understand how to adapt to different situations.
Since the adoption of the Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction, there has been an increase in the development and implementation of local disaster risk reduction strategies. From 2021 to 2022, global climate-related finance flows nearly doubled compared to 2019 to 2020 levels, reaching nearly $1.3 trillion. However, this amounts to only about 1% of global GDP, underscoring a significant financing gap. To achieve the objectives of a 1.5 degrees Celsius pathway, it has been said that annual climate finance investments must increase more than sixfold, reaching almost $9 trillion by 2030, with an additional $10 trillion needed by by 2050. With more frequent extreme weather events and the world warming up faster than at any point in recorded history, human health, particularly in the most vulnerable communities, is increasingly threatened, stated a new multi-agency report coordinated by the World Meteorological Organization, which focused its 2023 annual report, State of the Climate Series, on health.
Impacts of climate change on health are wide-ranging, affecting the determinants of health, from social behaviors to water safety to air quality and food security. And we see that it is the most vulnerable countries that are impacted the most by climate change. And particularly low and middle income countries are being impacted heavily by climate change.
The report, which includes input from more than 30 collaborating partners, shows that scientific know-how and resources can make a real difference in people's daily life, but are not sufficiently accessible or utilized, such as early warning coverage. The number of medium or large-scale disaster events is projected to reach 560 a year, or 1.5 each day, by 2030. Countries with limited early warning coverage have disaster mortality that is 8 times higher than countries with substantial to comprehensive coverage, according to figures cited in the report. Between 2000 and 2019, estimated deaths due to heat were approximately 489,000 per year, with a particularly high burden in Asia, which has around 45%, and Europe with 36%.
The impacts of extreme heat are quite severe, with up to 500,000 people being impacted with excess mortality related to extreme heat around the world.
Climate change is exacerbating risks of food insecurity. In 2012 to 2021, 29% more global land area was affected by extreme drought for at least one more month per year than between 1951 to 1960.
In the Horn of Africa, during the past 3 years, we had very severe food insecurity situation, which was related to both heat and drought. And quite often in these episodes, when we have heat waves, we have also fairly poor air quality. For example, in 2003, when we got 75,000 casualties in Europe, at the same time, the surface ozone concentrations were very, very high.
According to the report, heat waves also exacerbate air pollution, which is already responsible for an estimated 7 million premature deaths every year and is the 4th biggest killer by health risk factor.
The solution will be to stop the problem, so the cause of the problem, which is the combustion of fossil fuels. And this is for the health community, this is extremely important, because the combustion of those fossil fuels are not only contributing to greenhouse gases emissions, but as well to air pollution. We are creating conditions for more non-communicable diseases, lung cancer, chronic respiratory infections, because of the bad quality of the air we breathe. Immediate consequences because of the disaster, but as well because there will be massive displacement. They will maybe be responsible for destruction of the land with agricultural production, and therefore we will see malnutrition and massive mental health issues as well that we are seeing.
The changing climatic conditions are also enhancing the transmission of many climatically sensitive infectious vector, food and waterborne diseases. For example, dengue is the world's fastest spreading vector-borne disease, while the length of the malaria transmission season has increased in many parts of the world.
If you have all of these extreme weather events or global warming, you will have more difficulty to access water services, and that will be responsible as well for a massive increase on waterborne diseases. We are seeing an increase on cholera outbreaks around the world, by the way.
2023 has been so exceptionally hot in part because oceans have been warming, which means they are doing less to counteract global warming than in the past. Historically, the ocean has absorbed as much as 90% of the excess heat from climate change. And in the midst of an El Nino, a natural climate cycle that temporarily warms parts of the ocean and drives weather changes around the world, more warming can be expected in the coming months.
And we know that the El Nino is continuing to develop, so it's still more or less limited to the Pacific Basin. It has connected with the atmosphere now, and we and other data centers are monitoring it very closely to understand how significant, how severe this El Nino event. The current expectation is that it won't be as extreme as 2015, 16 and 2020. So that's good news for the climate, but we're still watching very closely to see how the event unfolds over the next few months.
This means the world should expect more records to be broken as a result of that warming. But the question is whether they will come in smaller steps going forward.
So October 2023 was the warmest October on record globally, with an average surface temperature of 15.3 degrees Celsius.
September was roughly 1.75 degrees Celsius warmer compared to the pre-industrial period. It was also 0.93 degrees Celsius warmer than the 1991 to 2022 baseline, which is used as a practical tool for climate-sensitive sectors like agriculture.
It's not a surprise because we've been monitoring the climate very carefully. And when we look at the global heat content in the ocean, in the atmosphere, and in the land surface, in terms of the heat waves that we've had across the planet, 2023 is the warmest year on record. And it now beats the previous warmest year by 0.1 degrees Celsius. And the previous warmest year was 2016. So on record for us, our data set, Era 5, goes back to 1940. But actually, when we combine our data with the IPCC, then we can say that this is the warmest year for the last 125,000 years. So for the last 125,000 years, that's obviously not instrumental data and satellite data like what we're using, but it's data from proxies, so from cave deposits, coral deposits, tree rings, ice cores that go back through time to give us an estimate of what the temperature and what the climate used to be.
World Meteorological Organization says that this continues an extended streak of extraordinary land and sea surface temperatures and is an ominous signal about the speed with which greenhouse gases are changing the climate.
Is climate change driven? And when we look at the data, we can say that the extra heat in the Earth system comes from a range of different locations. So if we look at different latitudinal bands of the planet, then we can say that there's, in October, extra heat coming from the Northern Hemisphere land, most of all, and also extra heat coming from the equatorial ocean region. So we know that most of this extra heat is coming north of the equator, and it's a combination of extra heat on land and in the atmosphere and in the ocean. The reality is that the warmer our planet is, the more extreme events we will have. And so that we'll not only get more extreme events, but they'll be more intense as well. So I'm sure everyone remembers the extreme wildfires, the heat waves that have been impacting many parts of the world, the extreme marine heat waves. We're more likely to have events like that, more severe hurricanes and cyclones, more intense storms. So we know with this extra heat in the atmosphere, it brings with it extra energy, which means we get more intense extreme events. Everyone's watching very carefully, and I think the connections between what the climate scientists are saying, what the weather forecasters are saying, and making sure decision makers are adapting and responding to those forecasts to protect not only people, but our nature and national parks and cities as well is really, really important.
That's our show for the week. Thank you for watching our inbox. Earthfile@channelstv.com is available for all your comments and questions. And you can also view this episode and other episodes of the program by visiting our YouTube channel, youtube.com/channelsweb, do click the playlist menu and then click Earthfile. From me, Ayola Kasim, and the Earthfile crew here in Lagos, it's bye for now.